nerds and nerdettes, welcome back to the channel where once again we have yet another top 5 list for you guys. I recently did on the channel a top 5 must-read omnibuses for Marvel and DC. I figured why not continue the series and go directly into my top 5 must-read indie titles in my collection. A quick definition of what I consider as indie titles is pretty much anything that is not Marvel and DC, so this does include Image, Dark Horse, even publishers like Ablaze, so you will be seeing titles like those, no matter their popularity, appearing on this list. But without further ado, before we jump into anything else, of course, I do want to remind you guys that if you're looking for any of these books on any of my lists or any of the books behind me, to head on over to the channel sponsor at organicpricebooks.com. Use that discount code STAYNERDY during checkout. You can get $2 off your order. It will help support, obviously, Organic Price Books, which is probably arguably the top dog in the book distribution world, if that's the world I should be referencing to. But it will also help out the channel, which I will, of course, be extremely grateful for. Every little bit helps out a lot, and I am just already stunned by how much you guys have been helping out. So if you guys could do that, that would be awesome. But without further ado, we can jump into the list. Just a quick reminder, this is not in any particular order, nor is it a definitive list or anything like that. This is just my subjective listing that I just feel like changed the game for indie comics for me when I was reading them, and I recommend others to read them because of that. But without further ado, we can start the list with, of course, number 5. And starting off the list is none other than The Walking Dead by Robert Kirkman. You have majority of the art by Charlie Adlard, a very, very well-known title. Its show adaptation is probably just as well-known as the comic book at this point. A very beloved series, not only in comic book format, but also its TV show on AMC, even though they are not similar at all. Just understand that if you haven't dove into either of them, so just keep that in mind. But it is a zombie survival horror story following the character of Rick Grimes and his eventual group that he does establish. This ticks all the boxes that you could want from a zombie story, from a survival horror style story. You have a lot of shock factor, a lot of blood and gore, a lot of unpredictable events as well, including major deaths that happen throughout. Really, this built the idea behind comic books and that your character may not be safe in its pages. This is the first comic book that really did that for a lot of readers, and it 100% hits the nail on the head. I personally am not a huge fan of Charlie Adlard's art in general, but it performed very, very well in this title. It very much lended to kind of the darkness of the story. One thing that a lot of people are not super aware of before jumping into The Walking Dead, because of its covers and everything like that, it is originally a black and white comic. I know that can deter some, but it again lends itself beautifully to this dark setting, this just absolutely beautiful story that's being told that explores hope, it explores humanity, and it explores the yuckiness of surviving in a world where you really have to do some very questionable things morality-wise to actually survive and make sure the ones that you love are going to survive as well. It is a beautiful story, tear-jerking moments, and so many unpredictable deaths and moments. It is really worth the read. This was probably my first indie comic that I really dove into out of DC and Marvel, and I'm a sucker for zombie stories, so instantly I fell in love, and I cannot recommend it enough. If you haven't checked it out, which I'm sure a lot of you are, unless you are a little bit newer to the hobby, but getting this, reading this is awesome. Also, if you collect singles, they are re-releasing them in colored editions, so if you want to go the singles or floppies route, then you can do that as well. But these editions are sorry, absolutely beautiful, and just a beautiful story in general. Ticks all the boxes. That wraps up number 5, so we'll head to number 4. And coming in at number 4 is something that I've just recently got to experience, which is the absolutely beautiful Bitterroot by David F. Walker, Chuck Brown, and Sanford Green. Sorry, I had to check there. Absolutely amazing title, something that I didn't experience up to the release of this hardcover omnibus edition, and it is absolutely something special. It really takes a dark time, a dark history in United States, and flips it on its head, makes it still just as dark and just as lesson teaching, if that's a way to explain it. It definitely goes out of its way to teach a couple lessons throughout its book, and doesn't shy away from the details throughout its history as well as America's history in general, but it also has a lot of fun with it, even though it's very, very, very dark undertone, which is very interesting to kind of think of somebody playing with the concept that is explored in this book, which I'm being extremely vague here because I do not want to give it away. Once you kind of find out what the story is really about, it's very intriguing and surprising also to actually just have it so front and center. But it follows the Singer family, which I'm sure I'm completely butchering that, which is a family of monster hunters during the Harlem Renaissance. And they hunt a monster called the Genu, which is a specific type of monster that is bred out of hate. But you do find out there's multiple species due to the type of hatred and where that hatred stems from. So it very much plays with its own concepts that it presents you with as well. Art throughout has so much just liveliness and love and just everything you want from it. It's dark yet not at the same time. The colors really pop off the page. There's action, there's mystery, there's twists and turns involving characters and two different sides of the family that have different ways of going about things, coming together, splitting, members that have different ideas of how to go about things pop up throughout the story. It really is something special. So many characters fleshed out beautifully and explored beautifully. You don't feel like it's lacking anything at all. And then there's obviously so many lovable characters as well. My favorite being Burge, this massive man with the intelligence of I don't even know. He's pretty much a super intelligent person, but he is the size of a brick house, being physical and mental threat to obviously the Genu, and it is absolutely awesome. His story throughout, you really laugh at, especially his interactions with characters and everything like that. So it really is written and illustrated with so much love and care, and you don't feel like it's disrespectful to kind of the history and lore that it explores in a way. It just kind of explores it differently and creatively, or with a creative mindset. I don't know, I feel frazzled talking right now, but absolutely awesome. I 100% implore you guys to check it out. It's a thought-provoking title with amazing art, an amazing story, twists and turns. I mean, what more could you ask for? I'm a sucker for any title that causes me to think, and that's exactly what Bitterroot causes or makes you do as you read, and that's exactly why it's in my top 5 must-reads. So wrapping up number 4, we'll now head to number 3. And up at number 3 is none other than Murder Falcon. I know it kind of just looks like it says murder because of the way the title is, but it's Murder Falcon by Daniel Warren Johnson and Mike Spencer. Daniel Warren Johnson being, or shaping up to be, one of my favorite creators in the game right now. Absolutely kills it on art. Times that he writes, he puts so much thought and heart into his stories, and that's exactly what we have here. A absolutely amazing story that Has again a somewhat dark undertone, especially involving its ending, but is so kick-ass throughout the story, especially pertaining to the art. Once again, it explores the importance of friends and family, especially when going through tough times, and it really dives into a battle that a character has to go through that a lot of us probably have went through in our lives, either involving family members or ourselves, which of course is always awesome as well to see. It's one that I somewhat saw coming, but really didn't see the ending coming, which allowed it to hit that much harder. Obviously, again, staying vague so you guys don't know what happens at the end. That'd be silly if I spoiled it. But absolutely awesome. The power and love of music, the power and love of those that care about us, support us, want the best for us, all wrapped up into one story. If you are a fan of music, this is the book for you. So many just Easter eggs and just fun things that they really explore, not to mention just the personification of the power of music as well, which is just so awesome. I don't know how he comes up with the ideas of the way these characters are designed, the way they look, the way the fight scenes happen. It is so awesome. It reads very much like an anime for my anime lovers. It's so in your face, so fast paced. It's bloody, it's gory, but also somehow so much heart in it. And it really just blew my socks off when I read it. I was expecting pretty high hopes for the story in general, just because everything he puts out I end up kind of liking, but man, was this such a great read. Can't recommend it enough. A lot of characters you can identify with, and battles and tribulations that you can identify with as well, including isolation, health issues, whatever it may be. And it is so human, so full of love, music, everything like that. It's definitely a must-read for, if not everyone, at least my music lovers. And that's exactly why it's at number 3. So we'll move to our top 2, starting with number 2. And at number 2, I'm sure a lot of you figured this is going to be on the list. We have Robert Kirkman showing up once again on his title, Invincible. Art is primarily done by Ryan Ottley, such an amazing artist. This is the Ultimate Collection. There are 12 volumes. It's also collected in paperback compendiums. A lot of other formats very similar to Walking Dead. A lot of these image titles are collected in a lot of the same ways. But once again, we have Robert Kirkman really putting so much humanity into a title that you wouldn't expect it again. This follows the character of Mark Grayson, who is the son of a Superman analog in a way that has yet to unlock his powers, just really going through the trials and tribulations of being a teenager, a high school student, a kid, all of those things that we all went through until one day his superpowers finally unlock, and the rest is history from there. This is definitely everything that you probably wanted from a superhero story. No, sorry for any spoilers there. It is a superhero story. It very much ignites that flame that Image first kind of lit during the 90s when they created their company and had Savage Dragon and characters like that trying to build their own universe full of superheroes. Invincible pretty much does that again, but so much more successfully. You have characters like Invincible, Mark Grayson, Omni-Man, Omni-Boy in later volumes, horrible villains like Conquest, so many just concepts, characters, storylines that just hit the mark. Once again, so much unexpected, sometimes stories or arcs that roll right directly into yet another with no breaks in between. It's definitely fast-paced, breakneck storytelling, and it's one of the best superhero stories out there. It has everything that you could want from a Superman story, but never got because of Superman's pacifistic ways. You have characters very similar to Batman, Iron Man, you name it, making an appearance, an entire world being built and established around one character, and you really grow to not only love obviously the main character and kind of his direct connection that he has with some characters, but a lot of the supporting cast as well get very fleshed out, and you fall in love with even them. Very much a amazing book, an amazing story, with also amazing art by Ryan Ottley, who is probably one of my favorite sorry again, favorite artists in this modern age of comics. But obviously there's a Amazon Prime show, animated show that was put out, became fairly popular. This is what it was adapted from, the original comic. So if you did like that, check out the comic. There's so many ways to collect it, and I don't think you need to be a seasoned veteran comic book reader to enjoy it, because it really hits the marks for all types of readers. I wouldn't say all ages, because it does get fairly violent and gruesome at some points, but definitely all different types of readers. And that's exactly why it's at number 2. But we'll wrap up the list with number 1. And last but not least, I'm sure a lot of you guys saw this coming. It is Saga by Brian K. Vaughan and Fiona Staples. These are the deluxe editions. There's 3 currently out. It's also collected in paperback compendium as well as trade paperbacks. I don't think there's any other formats that I know of, at least. But such an amazing title. This is the title that anytime somebody wants to get into indie comics or comics in general, as long as they're of age, this is the comic that I recommend to them to start with. So many genres ticked in here. You have the family dynamic explored, romance explored, adventure explored, you name it, it's in here. The synopsis of the story does follow the character of Marco and Alana, who, despite being of 2 different races that are at war with one another, somehow found themselves falling in love with one another and really having a little bit of a mishap, leading into an amazing adventure following kind of the flourishment of their relationship. Such a great read. The supporting cast alone is definitely worth reading about in general. So many kind of characters that you can really relate to, the kind of controlling dad, the judgmental mother, the babysitting or sitter kind of figure that everybody kind of grew up with, that they looked up to, whether it be a sister or whatever it may be. All of that is in here. It feels so human, even though it's in space and revolving around an alien or multiple alien races. But man, is it just so much fun. Obviously, like I said, you do need to be of age. There are a lot of pretty gratuitous and even gory scenes kind of taking place in this book. So this is not for kids, despite the amazing, cartoony yet realistic and human art done by Fiona Staples, which is another highlight of this book. She depicts the emotion that these characters go through so well. I mean, she really just kills it on this book in general. Brian K. Vaughan being probably one of my favorite indie writers in general, killing it on this book as well. But so many amazing characters, such an amazing story that twists and turns and winds and just goes down so many different paths. A lot of unpredictable moments also happening in this book. A lot of things that a lot of us were not very happy with or upset about, but very similar to life. Things happen, whether we like them or not, and that's kind of the undertone of this book, that life happens and you just kind of have to deal with it. And it is so human. I cannot describe this book in any different way other than it being human, because that's exactly what it is. It feels like real people, real characters going through real events, things that may or may not have happened to you or I as readers, that we can definitely identify with, which is always awesome, pertaining to characters and stories. So definitely try it out if you haven't. I feel like if you're in the comic book community, you've probably read this before, but maybe if you're newer, you may not have, because it is fairly under the radar. It does get overshadowed by a lot of other big 2 titles, omnibuses, books, things like that. So Sometimes people do sleep on it often, but it is 100% worth the read. It's 100% worthy of this, almost knocked it over, #1 must-read spot, and that's exactly why it's here. But that does wrap up today's list. Thank you so much for watching, as always. Please comment down below, because as I said, this is my subjective list, and it's not in any particular order. I've also said before, I'm not the leading expert on indie titles, so a lot of you guys are probably shocked by no Jeff Lemire or Rick Remender, but this is, as I said, my subjective list, and the way I kind of go about it is what got me into indie comics, and it was titles like these, so that's why they were put in my list. I could make a more in-depth one, obviously, like I offered in my other videos, but for somebody just freshly jumping into indie titles, these are 5 titles that I definitely recommend somebody reading. But please leave down below what your list would be, what 5 titles you think someone should read, because you never know who you could be helping out pertaining to indies and them not being very sure where to start. So comment down below, let me know your top 5. I would love to hear from you guys, just like I'm sure other people would love to hear from you guys as well. But if you are watching this and you're not part of the Illuminati, hit that subscribe button to join the community. It is such an amazing place. So many awesome conversations, listings, little topics that we talk about in the comment section, which is always awesome. Such a cool community that we're all building together. Also, if you could do me a favor and hit that thumbs up icon, it really helps the algorithm and in turn helps the channel grow. And if you did enjoy this video, then feel free to hit that bell icon. That way you can get notified anytime I put out any content, whether it be a video, a short, whatever it may be. But other than that, thank you so much for watching, as always, and stay nerdy, and I will see you in the next one.